Hey, welcome back to church. We're so excited that you're here. We got a great episode coming up for you. I got a question for you. Do you feel uneasy about your life? Matter of fact, are you worried about anything? Well, if you are, you probably want to stay and listen to this entire episode because today we're talking about peace. Yeah, peace. I think we all can use a little bit more of it. We all can kind of understand it a little bit better. So today, me and Jason are going to toss this subject around and unpack it a little bit and apply what we know about peace to what God tells us about peace. The thing I love about peace is the peace that comes from God is the peace that you just can't get anywhere else. It doesn't come from finances. It doesn't come from a good job or a good relationship. Only God can give you true peace. And today, I think we're really gonna dig into that. So, Jason, I'm gonna toss it over to you because we have great dialogue here. So, how
Yeah.
do you feel about peace, and where kind of are you in your peace journey right now?
Wow. So I feel like with peace, I can offer more examples than I can
Okay.
answer sometimes. Like God, I think so. God comes through so many times
Yeah.
in ways that bring peace that I got to be honest, I can't take a lot of credit.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of like, well, here's the 3 steps. And by the way, I'm sure there are books people can buy
Yeah.
where peace is like the goal and you're going to get calm, right? And people, and it's a kind of an association people make where if your life is calm, there's peace. If your life is organized, there's peace. I think there are times in my life where there's not a lot of calm. There's not a lot of organization. There's not even necessarily a lot of clarity about the future.
Yeah.
And yet I still have peace because I think God's peace really does pass understanding. And I
Ooh.
heard that as a young man and didn't really understand what that meant.
Yeah.
What I sought, I think of for a long time in my life was worldly peace. And so when you have kids, for instance, right, they love to run through the living room. And so we have some right now that they love to do this little circle around the house, like through the hallway, cut past the kitchen, come right back through the living room. Well, let me tell you, immediately it creates kind of the opposite of peace. It creates a little chaos, at least audibly, because the dog, right? Buzz, our beautiful 3-year-old pit bull, Staffordshire Terrier mix. I want to get that right because my son Matthew's listening and he's like making sure I get, Dad, you know what he is. Okay. So our 3-year-old dog, man, he'll get barking. It just creates chaos, but they're having fun, right? And I think this is a strong metaphor for peace is they're just having fun and they don't even realize that they're creating the conditions for the lack of peace, right? They don't understand. They're just having a good time. They're not thinking about it. But then the dog will start barking, okay? And here's the challenge is once he's worked up, that's it. He just is ready to play. I guess we're out of there. Or maybe he thinks somebody's in danger. He's not even really sure what's exactly going on. He just wants to be a part of it. So he can either join in the fun, help protect the family. He's going through this moment of he feels uneasy. He feels no peace because of something someone else did long after they're done doing it. And I think that's the good metaphor that's like percolating in my mind right now is sometimes I think we do things, right? We're metaphorically running through the living room of life and we're just having a good time. We don't even realize we're creating chaos for ourselves. We might be creating chaos for other people. And so to me, some of this episode, I just want to challenge people in kind of what are you doing to create an atmosphere of peace or lack thereof?
Yeah.
Is there something you're doing in your life that, and by the way, this is convicting to me too. Like there's things I definitely have done in my life where whether it's with a sarcastic joke or a snide comment or just outright me having a good time and I'm not thinking anything evil or chaotic or I'm not trying to create any problems, but then I create chaos and I take away somebody's peace, whether it's mentally, whether it's like actual physical peace, things like that, whatever the manifestation of those things are that you're seeking. I think what's really interesting is if you bring peace into your life and you trust God with it, you can bring peace into other people's lives. And so that's kind of where I start is the, what would we call it? Like the social aspect of peace, like what does that look like when you're dealing with other people? It's just a lack of conflict.
Yeah.
Or like a freedom from kind of an anxiety that something's going to happen. Like when you think about peace, a common visual is like someone sitting cross-legged kind of under a tree, or like a waterfall. And you have all these examples of like, whether it's ASMR or like meditation tapes, and
Yeah.
everything is about seeking calm. So what is it? Natural sounds. It's sounds that are not chaotic, right? Like, could you imagine turning on a self-help book or some kind of like meditation tape, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, guys, we're going to sit back, relax. And then it's like fast-paced jazz, or you have like hard rock in the background, and you're like, what is happening? In fact, there's been jokes made like that in films and things where somebody's seeking peace, and then like someone's banging on a trash can, or begins playing loud music, and so they have that upset neighbor, and it's really just us taking away someone else's peace. So the first challenge I have, the first kind of point that I would make is like, socially, what are you doing to create peace for people? Congratulations, that's good. Or what are you doing where maybe you're stealing it or taking it away from people? And so that's it. That's what I was thinking about. I'm just kind of like throwing in categories. So social peace. And by the way, right now, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't pitch this before I kick it back to you a little bit, is there's a lot of social unrest. There's a total lack of peace. And I'm talking about conflict, whether it's politically, socially, religiously. I just heard a podcast talking about the book of Revelation, and how this common misconception, which started in the 1830s by John Darby, about the oh gosh, I just forgot the word. Not resurrection, the rapture. That's the word I'm thinking of. I knew it was an R word. The rapture is going to happen when Jesus comes back. He's then going to pull the Christians, and then there's going to be wrath poured out. But this rapture story, it actually wasn't a biblical reference. It wasn't a biblical initiation. John Darby, this charismatic pastor, essentially started the myth, let's call it, because I really want to call it out for what it is, that Christians would be taken away. This rapture story will be taken away from all of the tribulation before Jesus even comes. Like, once the Revelation story begins, we won't be a part of it, right? We won't have any place or any challenge of creating peace in a world full of chaos. But that just isn't true.
Yeah.
So we'll still be there. If you read Revelation, we will still be there until Jesus actually returns. But things will get difficult before Jesus returns. That's what Revelation tells us. So, little background on Revelation. The Apostle John wrote it while stranded on an island and was getting visions. And so it's his translation of these visions and just kind of what God's going to do. And then I also heard, as I was listening to the podcast, I was reminded Matthew 24, the disciples on the Mount of Olives, they're resting, and they asked Jesus, like, just privately, how are we going to know when you're back? Or what is that going to look like? What is essentially they're asking him, what does the future hold? Can you give us the background on it?
Yeah.
Give us a little inside baseball. Give us the answers to the quiz. How do we do this thing? And so he just laid it out for them.
Yeah.
Straight up, there's going to be people that deceive you. There will be Christians who get deceived and fall away, that will end up facing God's wrath because they'll be tricked. And Jesus is telling them, do not be tricked by the people who say they're me. In fact, they will perform miracles.
Yeah.
And you have to not believe them, because I'm coming back like a flash of lightning. Funny enough, we talked about tattoos a couple episodes ago, maybe 4 or 5 episodes ago. I got this tattoo of the lightning bolt with the E above it to remind myself, Jesus talks about in Matthew where the return of the Son of Man is going to look like lightning that strikes in the east and lights the west. So shall the coming of the Son of Man be.
Yeah.
Like, it isn't going to be like somebody running and be like, man, I think we found Jesus in, Portugal. Like, there's this guy who's performing miracles. Let's go believe him. And there will be people who fall for those things. I don't mean to call it the country of Portugal. I have no idea. I'm just saying it won't look normal.
Yeah.
It will be coming on a cloud.
Yeah.
Jesus will be returning on a cloud. So until then, Christians have this challenge of like creating peace. And I have been struggling with this mightily. And Warren, maybe you could speak into this. This is kind of me asking a question. For you, what do you feel like that looks like? Because for me, I'm struggling a little bit with current Christian culture in that I think we call what we say is peace, and us keeping the peace could get dangerously close to passivity. And I think we are literally in a time where evil has a place and can get a voice through culture, through media, all of these things. And Christians are maybe kind of doing this thing where we're like, well, Jesus will take care of that. Right. And so I have been struggling and asking myself the question as a Christian leader, what does it look like to maintain peace, but not be passive? Let me tell you something. Can I tell you a quick story? You probably know this one. Okay, ready? There's a young man named David, and his brothers are off at war, and he's just bringing them food, right? And he's like, "Hey guys, I'm coming to feed the soldiers." Oh, hey, so what's going on? This guy over here is being blasphemous against our God. Like he is saying evil things about the God of the universe that we believe in. Is anybody going to do anything? And everybody's scared looking around. He's like, well, you know what? As long as he's doing that, there can't be God's peace in this area. So what does peacekeeping look like if you're David? Well, we tend to love it when it's David versus Goliath. Peacekeeping looked a lot like I'm knocking him down with a stone that I found in the nearby river. I'm going to go down there to the creek, get those smooth stones. I'm going to hit him, and then I'm going to cut his head off. So current culture would tell you, well, hold on, as a Christian, you're not peacekeeping. Right? How could you killed somebody? That's not peacekeeping. Well, wait a minute. David was a man after God's own heart. And he looked at that man and said, this man has chosen evil. We have to do something. And so I'm at a place in my life right now where it's really cool. I'm about to soon have an opportunity to move deeper into ministry with the college I'm teaching at. But I'm really asking myself the question, what does it look like as a faith leader not to promote a false idea of peace, right? Because peace does not always mean passivity. I think what peace is socially is like freedom from violence. But is that what God says? This is kind of like my internal battle, my turmoil. I had no idea that the topic we picked today would actually flesh itself out in this way. It's so relevant to me specifically. So maybe some of that was a little subconscious that I wanted to talk to you about it. As a man of great peace, I think that you are, and able to discern. Like I trust your discernment in terms of what is the difference between peace and passivity, and is one better than the other? And by the way, this is my chance. Like a few times on the podcast, I've opened it up in a genuine way where like you might be in total disagreement. So I genuinely don't know what your answer. This is you and I just having a conversation. Welcome to the show, everybody.
Welcome to the show.
This is so. What do you think, man? Where are you landing? Current culture.
Wow.
Christian men specifically as leaders of the faith, like for our families, for our culture. What burden do we bear to recognize the difference between, my question is between passivity and peace. Maybe you see it differently. I'll let you roll. This is your moment.
So I'll just give you a clue to kind of where this answer is going.
Okay.
The story about David, like that is so relevant. I would have used the same example, right?
All right.
I would preface this with saying no answer is an answer. And so in today's Christian culture, a lot of times we just go quiet on things. We just, hey, I'm not touching that. That's too hot. I'm not getting canceled. So no answer is an answer. It's saying, when you don't oppose something, you agree with it. You stand for it, right? And so a lot of times we just want to say, let's have peace by just not answering, by just allowing things to happen within our preview, things walking in and out of actual churches and things walking in and out of Bible studies that we are, and we just don't say anything, things walking in and out of our lives and our relationships. and we're just quiet about them, right? We just let them go. And so I dial it back to something me and you can both relate to, is fatherhood, right?
Yeah.
And my follow on example with David is this. I got 3 sons. I love them. They're all 8, they're all grown now. So, but when they were boys, right, whatever I allowed them to do or get away with, I agreed with, right? So if I didn't address it, right, because I didn't want to upset the temperature in the home, right, I was creating unrest because I allowed something foreign to come into, right, our home via these young, unexperienced boys. And so in order to keep the peace, I have to set the peace, right? And so we set it. We bring God into the situation. We are peacemakers, right? But we part of holding the peace is keeping the standard. Because unless it's an environment where God can exist, you're not gonna have peace. And so we often have to have the hard conversations. We often have to offend people, right? Because we're people and we're fallible, and and when you correct people, they just automatically get offended. And so sometimes you have to proverbially kill the giant, right? So that the land can have peace, right? Sometimes you have to be a warrior after those things that are not of God and protect that place, your space, your church, your family. You have to stand up. You have to do something in order for there to be peace, because there will just be unrest and unruliness if we just like, peace is not passive. Peace is active. We actively have to be a part of peace. And kind of in the same vein, I think when we think about peace, you said this, we mostly think of someone like, sitting, legs crossed, meditating, humming, focusing on one thing, right? In that moment for that person, that meditation is peaceful, right? But peace to me is being focused and active in your life. Like peace to me, real peace is as you're operating, as you're teaching, as you're going through your life, as you're dealing with your spouse and your kids, having the ability to have peace in the midst of chaos. Everything around you is going up and down, right? Life ebbs and flows. But on the inside, there's an internal thing saying everything's working for your good. Like all challenges are opportunities to grow. Like all good things should be enjoyed to the full, right? And I'm walking in the holiness of God, true peace, right? I grew up in a very authoritative home. And so for me, it relates like this. When you know you're doing the right thing, when you know like your homework's done and your chores are done and you are in good standing with, your parents, you're like, I'm good. I'm good. I got everything done. I got nothing hanging over my head. I'm good. I'm doing the right things, right? As a kid, you're like, I can play and I don't have the book report. I don't have anything. I'm here. I'm free from distraction because I got peace. I'm in line with what I be doing, what I need to do. And in life, like as adults, I found myself in situations where I was like, man, I don't have this peace. I'm walking with God, but there's some things about my life that don't line up with God, right? Or there's some things in life that I just haven't taken care of. I know I got to take care of. And I have this unevenness in my life, this unrestfulness. Like if there's something you haven't addressed, back to your point, as a Christian, right? Say there is something that's just in your home, in your family that you haven't, it comes in the form of this, right? It's the one relative, the brother, the sister, the uncle, the cousin who you haven't shared Jesus with. And every time that person is around, you're uneasy. You're just like, because God's not going to let you rest or have peace in that situation because you haven't done what you've been called to do. Like if David didn't slay the giant, there'd still be war, right? There'd still be problems, right? And so there's some giants in our own lives that we must slay in order for us to have peace. God has called us to some situations and he's called us into action. So peace is an active thing. It's not passive. It's not like saying, just let it be. It will be what it's going to be. Nope. You won't have peace that way.
Right.
Peace calls you into action, especially when you're walking with God. There's some things you must address, some things you must do in order to receive the peace of God. Right? He's giving you an assignment, and you must stand for something, or you will fall for anything. And falling for anything there is no standard. There is no limit to what will happen. And we're in a world where we keep pushing the boundaries, right? It seems like it just keeps getting more extreme, but it's getting more extreme because more and more Christians are shying away from persecution. They're like, hey, I don't want people to think I'm not cool. I don't want people to think I'm not, I want to fit in. I want to be loved by people. And like, I'd rather be loved by God than to be loved by people. Right? Because people change. They love you today, they hate you tomorrow, they cancel you next week. So, but we serve a God who's never changing. There is no shifting of shadows in him. So, to answer your question, peace is not passive. Right?
Yeah.
And it comes in several forms. You don't always have to cut the head off, but there are times they're going to show up where you got to kill it. You have to kill it in order to have the peace in your life, in your walk with Christ. And if, I speak to people today, if there's a space in your life where you are uneasy or you're just worried and you're like, man, I'm following God, but look around and see what you have not slayed. Look around and see the thing that God's called you to. God called you to speak up to. God's called you to get the smooth stone, and knock it out.
Yeah.
And go out and do those things. Be bold and courageous, right? Move forward as God has called you to do. And so then you'll find the peace in things like that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to kill it. Sometimes the mission is just to address it. Sometimes the mission is just to say, hey, that's not right.
Yeah.
I'm calling that out. And then you'll have peace in the situation because you know that you spoke up, that you took action on it, right? And so then you'll have peace. It's kind of like if your grass needs to be cut, right? But you really feel like binging Netflix series, or Amazon Prime, whatever, Peacock, whatever, right? Right. Can you really, really relax when you got grass to cut?
Yeah.
It's the same way.
If you do, in 3 weeks, you won't be able to see your car tires. So then you definitely won't be able to relax, and it'll be harder on you.
It's like unfinished business.
Yeah, I think that is the metaphor, right? So if you're not willing to go do the thing you need to do now, what you're saying is you're ready to take on the challenge later that will be more difficult. One thing I did think of too, as you were saying, are you willing to pick up the smooth stones and cut the head off? The flip side of that is you also sometimes have to be ready to die for it.
Come on.
So I don't want to use the word kill inappropriately, but are you going to go kill the thing that is damaging peace, or are you willing to die to keep it? Because the other one is they're both active, but one is really sacrificial, right? You're willing to die for this thing that you believe in. Or sometimes I think killing it could feel sacrificial too, but it's just not as permanently difficult for you because you get to continue on with this path that we value so much. Like this little blip on the radar that is our lifetime, where God sees way past it, and he's thankful for the relationship he can have with us and all that we can do for him and those things. But at the end of the day, we are but a dust in the wind, man. We are just a blip on the radar. So we get to value this amount of time we have because it's the chance that we have to essentially affirm our relationship with God.
Yeah.
This is the amount of time he's allotted us to do his work. And that's the maturing I've had to do in my life. Is all of these things were never about getting better at basketball. Getting better at basketball was an inroads to relationships.
Yeah.
Getting better at graphic design was an inroads to be able to talk to students. And trusting God and not having shame is an inroads to being able to share him with more and more people without feeling embarrassed. And so there's all these things that I've quantified all these skills that I have or that I've built up and all these things. It's not really that. It's you're just loading your quiver of things God can use, and everybody has different things.
Yeah.
The challenge that I face specifically right now in this moment in our culture is I'm going through a moment where I'm trying to figure out how bad it's gotten, what the enemies of peace actually are. And so here's the weird thing that's happened. We were talking about David and Goliath. Let's take that one step further. And I didn't plan any of this, so I'm just fleshing this out as we go. Goliath looked like another person, right? God created Goliath. God loved Goliath. And then Goliath chose to be opposed to God. Well, God can abandon you. Like that is something we don't like to talk about in our prosperity doctrine that we have in Christianity sometimes, is like God can then, and I think it says this in Revelation, at some point when you've run out of time, God will actually give delusion to people so that they are no longer even able to take him in because you've had enough time. Like there's been enough time. I think about the flood, right? The biblical flood. Those people had a chance to have a relationship with God. Noah decided to maintain it. And the rest of everybody else said, that's not something I choose. And God, I think, I mean, I know, but I'm saying, like, to flesh it out for people who are maybe not Christians, is like, God gives you free will and has free will himself, right? That's kind of like the example that we have of love and of, but some of the anger we have, some of the frustration, like I think emotions, God gives us the ability to have and create and like recognize and be righteous in some of those things. So there is such thing as righteous anger. Like, I am God. You have this opportunity to have a relationship with me. But when you go against me, there's no greater thing to go against. So if you go against God, God is not unjust in punishing you. You know what I mean? Like at some point, he is the decision maker. He is the moral compass for right and wrong. We just get to try to play in the game that God has built for us, or within the rules, the framework, because God knew we needed a framework. So we have access to the Bible. And I think as Christians, we do this thing where like, I'm so scared to offend that I'm not going to operate. And here's the challenge. What if David was afraid to offend the Philistines by attacking them? Like, how did David know? And that's the question you could ask, is like, so, okay, so let's say I'm ready to push back against the things in culture that I see are lies. I see evil being put forward and can damage people's lives. So what do? I'm not sure when I'm in front of someone if they're Goliath or if they're just a person who's like doesn't know what they're doing. They're doing the wrong thing. To me, it is all about harmonious relationship with God. Like, can you hear God when he is talking to you? Are you in relationship with God so much that like when God texts you, you know the number? You know, when God calls, you pick up the phone. You're like, oh, God, hey, no, I know that's you. What are you saying? Do you trust the answer? Right? How do you respond to the text? Do you LOL God, or are you like, got it, thumbs up, let's go? You know what I mean? Like there's so many ways that we've just, oh man, I don't even want to use this language because again, it's funny. I'm doing the thing that I was saying I don't like. I don't want to offend anybody, but like we've really softened. We have. We've gotten to a place where, because so many people can communicate with each other and we see so many ideas, it's like, well, morality can shift and change, right? It's a sliding scale where if you feel this way, well, then it's not untrue because you obviously feel it, as though sin can't impact people's decision making. And so even for this podcast episode so far, I feel like I'm more aggressive than usual just because I'm at this moment. Like, if I'm being honest, it's like you watch a presidential candidate get shot in the ear and fall down. Then you see different media outlets saying like presidential candidate falls on stage, or like Social Security have to take Trump down after incident, those kind of different things. I'm like, that's not what happened though. And by the way, if that's what happened, I'm open to the truth telling, right? So if Goliath shows up and he's looking at the Israelites and he's like, hey, I'm 10 feet tall and I have all my weapons. I just want to talk. Is it cool if we talk? And then David's like, I need to go kill this guy. He's like, wait a minute. Wait. Somebody needs to say to David, like, well, hey, actually, you're saying he's attacking. It's a lie. Actually, but like, can I call out the lie? Hold on. He's just saying he wants to talk. No, this guy's blaspheming God. Like, it's like, in the Bible, it says the ways you should act and be and treat God. This person's acting against that. Okay. In fighting evil, you don't have to give evil a chance to say, I'm sorry all the time. They know what they're choosing because everyone has access to God. And it's just this bizarre thing we do where we're like, I don't want to offend. Well, let me tell you, the people you're worried about offending with truth, like that would be offended by facts versus how they feel, like they'll be upset because of something that actually happened. They wake up offended. Like they are ready to be offended.
Yeah.
In fact, it is their armor. And so our armor gets to be peace, but our armor doesn't always get to be passivity. It doesn't get to be a comfortable life. It doesn't get to be easy. It doesn't get to be, well, I can do whatever I need to do, but maybe I won't get culturally canceled. God didn't say that. It doesn't get to be that. It actually doesn't get to be that you're not an outcast in your own society, among your own people. See Jesus for details. I mean, no kidding. The God of the universe was rejected in his time, in his home, by his people. But we think we get something better.
Yeah, we don't.
And there was something happening in the early church in Rome where, and my father-in-law and I were talking about this recently. These dudes get it, man. Like, do you know, so Rome is, in theory, the reason the Christian church has populated and grown as far as it has. Like they accepted it, and Constantine gave it the thumbs up. Man, boom. Rome, powerhouse at the time, became Christian. We're going to stop killing these people. So let me back up right there. Killing these people.
Persecution.
Thousands of Christians had to die, or had to die. I mean, did die. It's just a fact. They did die and were killed for their beliefs. Yeah. But then the story could be told, but then like the church grows. But then fast forward to 2024, in America, American Christians were like, we're much more intelligent than those people. We're wiser. We are more culturally aware than those people. So here's what we're going to do. We'll protect everybody. We'll love everybody. In fact, maybe loving them isn't calling out all of their lies. We'll just let them have a couple. And then, as culture deteriorates, we can say, well, Jesus has got it. He's in control. We'll just let them have a little bit of, you can be a different species. You can be a different sex than you're born that God created you to be. Like, you can be all these things. You can do all these things. And in fact, we're going to let you believe it because we love you enough not to hurt your feelings.
And we want to keep the peace.
We just want to keep the peace. Easy. Right. And that, by the way, there it is. That's the episode title right there. We call it peace. Yeah. But it's really creating chaos. It's creating internal chaos. And to me, that is the difference between something that is God-centered and like the difference between good and evil. To me, if you really dive down, I'm like trying to think about it. It's not always peace. It's order versus chaos. Right? The Bible orders things, lays it out for us. What does that look like? Yeah. And so sometimes for order, it's not peaceful in creating order. Like you're cleaning your bedroom. Anybody knows what I'm talking about? You got to like throw all the shoes over here. You don't just like put them away in the rack first. Maybe you just move them in a pile. So it's like a little more chaotic. You're moving clothes over here. You got your papers you got to throw away. So you're balling them up. You create chaos and then you throw them away. Now there's peace, right? There's like, you're creating a little bit of chaos to create order. But chaos itself, right? Just letting it rain and letting it go, there's no chance for order. And so God is not disorderly. God could be a little chaotic to create order, but he's not functionally disorderly. Those kind of things. By the way, this is getting, even for me, I just want to make sure I don't get confusing. Like, peace isn't always prosperity in how the world defines it.
Come
right.
on.
And so if you're seeking peace and you think, well, and that means that like I have a certain size house, now I have peace. I have a certain car, now I can be peaceful.
Yeah.
In fact, my car has AC that works. Oh, now I'm peaceful. I have just enough money in the bank account that like now that I got 3 months of salary covered, now that I got 3 minutes of salary covered, now I can have peace. But if my bank account is below 3 figures or 2 figures or negative, there's no peace.
Let's go.
In fact, if my bank account's negative, how could I possibly fight back against the things in the world I see are evil? I got to get my house in order. I have to make sure everything's perfect. I couldn't possibly just be a shepherd boy delivering food.
Come on. You know what that sounds like, right?
That's what we've done.
That sounds like that. One of my mantras is peace isn't about what you have. It's about who has you.
Oh, that's good.
You know, so I mean,
now you're preaching.
we live in a world where we think we can get something that will give us this peace, right? That you just finished talking about it. That will shore us up. Like if you hit it, like I got to have the 6 months of emergency fund, and I got to have all my retirement funds, and then I'll be peaceful.
Yeah,
psych. It's a trick of the enemy. It's nothing satisfies that. I mean, the older I get and the more I get, I just realize it all really means nothing. Yeah, you need money and you have to survive, but God takes care of me so much better than I can take care of myself. And the funny thing is when I go and get it on my own, like without putting God first, I'm always looking over my shoulder, like, when is it going to leave? Like, is the stock market dropping today or tomorrow? Like, what's the price of this? Where's my 401k? Like, I'm always worried about inflation, right? When I have to secure my own future. But when I know God holds my future, he holds me. And ultimately, I'm not here to stay. Legitimately, I'm not here to stay. That's peaceful.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to worry about building this grandiose legacy or inheritance, and build up all this stuff that will eventually decay and go away. I mean, we've talked about finances and what money really is, right? Just, like it's an illusion, right? It's not, this is not your forever place, right? So the peace of knowing that your life is in God's hands.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still going to have problems. Let's just get real. It's going to be issues. You're going to go up and down. But at the end of the day, or at the beginning of the problem, if you remind yourself that God's got this, like he will never take me to a place that his provision won't provide for me. He'll never put me in a situation that he can't get me out of. And whatever I need in this situation is either to grow or it's either to change my life direction. If I follow him, right, no matter how bad it looks, the outcome is I win.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, it's not about what you have. It's about who has you. That's true peace to me. And you can swing it however, but it's being in the middle of the fire, like the 3 Hebrew boys, being in the fire and God in there with you. I'd rather be in the fire with God than outside chilling, just having an easy life. Like, boom, boom.
Well, how about this? Let's take that story to its actual conclusion. Ready? You think you're good because you're outside the fire. The 3 of them survived in the fire with God. The soldiers that threw them in the fire died. They weren't even in the fire. They just got close and died. Yeah. These 3 that were in it with God survived it.
They weren't even they were just doing their job.
I'm just saying. I mean, right. Like and that maybe that's something about going through the motions. There's some metaphor there. Yeah. Like the soldier just going through the motions and it cost him everything. These 3 doing something wild and crazy and pushing back. And like what I would say, long-term created peace, right? In the short term was look like creating chaos in order to lead to order. Yeah. Like the order of things was worship God first, not the king. They changed culture, right? They changed people's approach to God. Yeah. Like the king believed in God now. Yeah. Because these 3 young men were like, nope. And by the way, that's what I mean is when I brought up there's occasions where God calls you to chop the head off, and there's occasions where God calls you to get your head chopped off. Right? And so going in the fire, going into a lion's den, right? Going into Egypt when your brothers sell you into slavery. Like there's so many stories where like you have to accept and acknowledge the sacrifice or challenge ahead of you. And then God gets this glory at the back end, and you just kind of get to ride God's coattails, which is beautiful. You just get to kind of like ride into the sunset with God. But here's this really interesting thing. I was thinking about peace, right? You kind of were talking about, or we talked about comfort, like that more comfort equals peace. Well, there's so much evidence against that from some of the best examples we have. So Paul, who wrote most of the New Testament, at least half of it, letters to the church, things like that.
Letters to the church.
He had total peace in jail. And interestingly, his life didn't have peace when he had the most power, like what we'd see as power, because for people who don't know the story, started as Saul. His job was to kill Christians. He was very good at it. And on the road to Damascus, God blinded him. And so he found God through kind of this, like, I would say punishment, but like
being broken.
Yeah, there's being broken by God. And then it changed everything. And God used the last person you would think of to then change the church forever. Like bring believers back to God. And through the New Testament and the letters to the church, give us the example of what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
Here, it's just really interesting to me. When Saul had all the power to kill others or fight back, it's not always the calling, right? Because God could have then taken him and made him a great warrior for Christians at the time. But this is the part I've been kind of challenged by, is in a post-Jesus world, what does cutting Goliath's head off look like? So we no longer have to conquer in that way because God conquers in that way. And so I just want to make sure that I'm not encouraging anybody to pick up smooth stones, go cut a giant's head off, all these things, right? Like that's not practically what I'm saying. Jesus came and he already sacrificed everything. He came to earth. He brought Holy Spirit. Now we have access to the greatest power on earth.
Yeah.
What do we do with it? We share Jesus with people.
Come on.
And by the way, Paul died.
Come on.
For what he believed in.
Come on.
When he was killing other people and staying alive, his life wasn't bearing fruit and wasn't powerful. When he died for it, his life was powerful.
Come on.
And so it's a contradiction, right? I've said this now a few times. I want to say it on this episode, but over the last couple of weeks, I've been talking to people. Sometimes God's plan is a terrible plan, right? It's like, just you look at the plan and you go, no, listen, hear what I'm saying. I know everybody just raised an eyebrow.
That hit different.
Like, let me tell you about my life, for instance. 2016. If you had told somebody, let's do this, let me just make it about any man. You tell somebody, hey, here's what you should do. You want to work in ministry? I have a good plan, aka terrible plan. Let's go get your master's, not in something ministry related. Let's go get it in graphic design. And then what we're going to do is send you up to Vermont, a state where Christianity is not highly respected, at a school where Christianity wasn't spoken about. We're going to send you to this place. In fact, we're going to send you there longer than you expect. And you're going to feel like it's a downgrade because you can't graduate quick enough. Then what we're going to do is have you working at a place where maybe you struggle and it's not like a Christian atmosphere. So again, you're not at peace. You're like battling all these things. You're going to have kids. You're going to have a wife. You got to do all these difficult things. It's going to be fun. It'll be rewarding, but like, hey, this right here, going through getting your graphic design degree, then teaching graphic design at a college, okay? Becoming a professor, pretty cool. All of this, right? This plan I've laid out, you're thinking, man, that's a really good plan to become a professor of graphic design. And you're like, no, you misunderstand. This is God's plan of how you can get into ministry.
Yeah. Come on.
And you would be like, what are you saying? What do you mean? So you're saying go to school for 3 years for this other thing, go start teaching the other thing, don't even get an offer in the other thing, just like, trust God. And all of a sudden you'll have a job in ministry. Well, ladies and gentlemen, recently I've been brought on as the minister to the university at my college. God's plan.
Come on.
Practically speaking.
Come on.
When I say God's plans are terrible, it is based on a human standard.
Yeah.
For God's plans. God's plan to get me in ministry was a terrible plan if he's not involved.
Come on.
If God is not involved, God has terrible plans. Here's the plan, right? We're going to send this shepherd boy. We're going to send him out with stones, and the armor's not going to fit. In fact, we're going to make it look so pathetic that people laugh and all these things. And that is the guy who is going to change Israel and my people forever.
Yeah.
And you would look at God, if it wasn't God, and say, that is a terrible plan.
Come on.
Like, what do you mean? This is a terrible plan.
Come on.
So if you're going through something and it feels terrible and like the plan isn't going according to plan, but you trust God about it, be excited, because the way God gets the most credit is by making terrible plans that we have the best plan. Do you know it's a terrible plan? Ready? All right, God's going to come to earth, ready? And he is going to get 12 people that will share the gospel with people. And what he's going to do, he's going to go get people like Martin Luther King Jr. He's going to go get great orators that are powerful kings, and he's going to bring these 12. Nope. He's going to go get 12 dudes that had a 5th grade at best education. He's going to go get a tax collector that everybody hates. He's going to get these fishermen that have no idea what they're doing. Let's go back a little bit. Ready? We're going to free his people from Egypt. Let's get a guy with a stutter.
Yeah, come on.
Doesn't want to do it. Who, by the way, has to take his brother Aaron with him because he's so bad at stuttering. But he's going to be the representative.
Come on.
To get, or speech impediment. Let me not say stuttering. Let me be specific. There was a in the context of the Bible, Moses potentially had a speech impediment because it talked about him not. So Aaron was going to go with him. So he had to have his bro. Could you imagine, like, we got a president, but we're going to have this other dude do his speeches for him because he can't accomplish his speeches on stage. So you just stand here, Mr. President. We're going to have this other dude do a speech. We would lose faith in that person, right?
Hey,
so what am I saying?
Go back a little further. Plan. You took a drunk, right? To build a boat.
Dude.
Come on. I mean,
come on. It's just wild. Like God's plan, his plans are terrible, not by our standard, because then how can he get the most credit? Because God, and over and over and over again, there's so much evidence in my life and other people's lives. God needs to do things.
Come on.
In an unreasonable way.
Let's go.
So that we know he deserves the credit.
Let's go.
My wife and my kids and the life we have led is an unreasonable blessing on a man's life who does not deserve it. I'm speaking from the most personal experience. I don't deserve the things that I've gotten. And I don't deserve any platform that I've been given. It's not because the truth is, it's not about me. Like, if God can, create a backlog of people trying to get into heaven because of something I say, and I'm this imperfect guy, then they can point and be like, well, it wasn't even Jason. It wasn't Professor Fowler, right? He didn't get me into heaven. But man, he said that one thing and all of a sudden it opened up a relationship with God. And so it isn't about me. And boy, my life changed when I realized that peace, chaos, order, all these things, it's about God's plan. And sometimes his plan looks terrible, but it's going awesome. I promise.
Come on. So, sometimes it does not. It looks like a disaster, but God's ways are so much higher than our ways. I mean, his thoughts are beyond what we can even imagine, right? So if you're the person and you're like, you got this dream down in your heart, but you're on a total different path, just keep trusting God. His path leads to where he will place you in the position where you need to be. Trust us, like he never fails. It doesn't matter how bad it looks. God is in control. Jason, you mentioned something like just a couple of clicks back of our responsibility. Like what are we? What is God calling us to do? And that's to share God with people, right? This just kind of just clicked in my mind, and I want to share this. Like, I spent a lot of time on board U.S. Navy ships, retired Navy guy here. And as I rose through the ranks in the Navy, when you get to a certain level, the main purpose of your job, right, is to ensure that the people around you are doing things in a safe way. I retired a master chief, and as a master chief, I did a lot of meetings, did a lot of planning, did a lot of managing, did a lot of advising, right? But one of my most important jobs is, as I was walking around the ship day in and day out, my job was to stop people who were going to do something that were going to harm themselves. When you're on a warship, everything's dangerous. Like, it's all made of steel. Everybody's doing something dangerous. It just, you walk 2 feet and this person doing something dangerous. So one of your main jobs is to be a safety observer. I can't tell you how many times I've walked by a group of sailors who were doing it. Like, hey, stop. That's not safe. Stop. Don't do that. Like, pulling people out of dangerous ways, just preventing injuries, just making sure people are doing the things the right way. As a Christian, right? As we grow up in God, as we get stronger and as we mature and as we walk with him, our job on this earth is to be a safety observer. We're not just supposed to walk by people, right, and not share God with them. We're not just supposed to exist on this planet for my comfort, for my life. Your life belongs to God, and he wants you to share him with other people who may be like, hey man, I've been where you've been. I know, I see what you're doing. I see what you're trying to, can I just tell you about a guy who knows all about this situation? Like, and I'm telling you, it's challenging for you to step out of your comfort zone and share the love of God with people. But let me tell you, it does more for you than sometimes them, because not everybody's going to listen. Right.
Yeah.
But what it does for you, it strengthens your faith in God, because somebody somewhere one day shared the love of God with you. Most people, they don't come to Christ on a Sunday morning and raise their hand. Right. Maybe that's the formation of it. But the way they got to church was either a friend, a coworker, or somebody who's already demonstrated the love of God practically in life, had invited them to church. So they got the invitation, right?
Yeah.
You're that practicality. You're that person that's assigned to someone that will change their life. It may be the way you talk to people. It may be how you go about doing your task, but it is in you to share the love of Christ with people. Don't miss the opportunity to share the love of God with people. That's what you're called to do. That's what God wants you to do. And I have this piece for people who have peace. Like, you have peace. And I'll describe it to you as a pie, piece of pie. It's a whole pie, right?
Okay.
And you got this peace and God's in control, but you just can't seem to regulate yourself. You just can't seem to be settled. You just have so much pulling on you, right? And so maybe it's your career. It comes and it takes a slice. Your family, they come and take a couple slices. And your friends, they come and take a couple slices of your piece. And at the end of the day, you may be left with maybe one slice or maybe no slice of peace left in your life. And you may feel, even though God's in control and that peace comes from him, that you feel empty every day. And it's not a comfortable feeling. I give you 2 practical things you can do. Pray that God increase your capacity to continue to be peace for people who don't have it. Right? Pray for more pie, bigger pie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And 2, be thankful for the opportunity that you get to share it. Don't be the person to be like, I hear this quota, I got to protect my peace. And I think that means a couple different things in today's society, right? Like, I don't deal with negative people, and I don't allow people who are no good for me to be in my life. Be careful about that, because the people who are negative, maybe they need to be around you.
Yeah.
The people who just take from you, maybe this their season where they really just need someone to lean on. Reframe that, I protect my peace. Give it away. Slice it up. Ask God for more. You know the source, right? So you being free and you being able to communicate that peace and give that peace out may change your world and their world. So don't just be like, this is mine. I got peace. Get your own peace. Share it.
Yeah.
I know it's tempting to be like, I got to protect myself. How about you ask God to increase your ability to be peaceful and to share peace with people? It will.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of what the world says. The world says, keep what you got. If you think you can just protect your peace, man, that's a job within itself. You have to be able to go everywhere and anywhere and still be who God's called you to be. Right? Don't give yourself another job of like, I have to guard guard your life and make sure that you're staying around. But God will put you in places to where, the peace and joy that He's given you, that you get to slice it up and hand it out to people. Right?
Yeah.
And so live full, die empty.
It's a metaphor people have used a ton of times, but I love it where it's the thermostat versus the thermometer.
Come on. We love that
one. So yeah, I think if you have shallow human friendship, relationship based peace where if things are good between you and other people, or you and yourself, or you and the TV show you just watched, whatever it is, whatever creates chaos in your life in terms of turmoil emotionally and mentally, if you have shallow peace that is impacted quickly by negativity and things like that, then it's too much of a thermometer.
Yeah.
Like you've chosen to be impacted by the things of this world that want to rattle you and leave you with no peace. And that's the nice part, is we get to choose to be a thermometer or a thermostat.
Come on.
Because the more you dig into the Bible and find out who God is, the more you realize, like, no matter what's going on around you, it's not about you.
Yeah, let's go.
Like, you get to be a thermostat.
You're hitting it, Jason.
And
let's go.
You can change the temperature, right? Without even doing much, right? A thermostat is what, like 4 clicks of a button if you want to change it 4 degrees. 4 degrees is a huge change in a room, right? 4 degrees will change whether you're sweating or not inside of a room. But 4 clicks of a button is easy. And you get to be the thermostat that can change the whole temperature and dramatically shift what people are doing, even if it's just you remaining peaceful.
Come on.
And what does that look like? So we go from shallow, human-based peace to deep, harmonious with God, solidified peace in what He's doing. And so for me, that's my challenge, right? And maybe that's part of the answer. And I'll be seeking this for the rest of my life, I think, is as a warrior for God, as someone who wants to step out and realize, like, when the Goliaths of the world push back, what does it look like to do? Or when you get thrown in jail by the Romes of this world and you're Paul, how do you push back?
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like? It just looks like peace. For Paul, it looked like, hey, God's got it. In fact, I'm just going to scribble some things down to these churches, let them know how much I love them and care about them. I'm proud of them. Or I am occasionally ashamed of them, right? Like, you need to change some things you need to do. But how can I speak with such authority? Because I realize I'm nothing.
Come on.
And God's everything.
Come on.
Like, I'm sharing God with people. That's it. That's where you get deep-rooted peace. That's the source of peace. That's the source of joy and love and patience with people. And all of these things, all these fruits of the Spirit, they will garner peace in your life.
Yeah.
Where if something changes in the bank account, in your relationships, in your health, in whatever it is, God has still got this. And by the way, this is true for all people who choose to have a relationship with Him. So choose that thing today. Whatever that thing is, and I'm being specific, like choose God. But whatever the thing is that's stopping you from having a relationship with God, today is the day to crack open a Bible. Look at who Jesus was. I've said this many times on the pod. Find a red letter Bible, the red text Bible, just read the red text. Whatever Jesus said, you can be sure. Whether you question, like, all these humans wrote the Bible or all these stories happened, it was just word of mouth. Jesus said what He said because multiple people heard it and wrote it down. In fact, historians have over and over again said, for sure, He did these things. Even if people don't agree He's the Messiah, people agree He was at least this great orator and prophet that came in and, like, changed people morally. That's for people who aren't Christians. But we as Christians know a deeper truth. That God came to earth, felt the pain we felt, took everything and died for it. So then what's the call on your life? What does it look like for you to create peace for other people? Sometimes it requires discomfort and chaos for you. So I pray for long-term peace and knowing that I'm going to heaven. Other than that, I pray for short-term and long-term peace for everyone listening to the pod. But if you don't get it, if you don't have it, it doesn't mean God is not having you in the midst of His, and I do big air quotes, the midst of His terrible plan. So you're looking at this plan, you're like, this is terrible. This isn't working. I don't know what's happening.
It's not
God's like,
to be.
all right, you got to just trust my terrible plan, man. because it's going to be beautiful.
It's going to be beautiful.
It's going to be awesome. And because it's terrible, I get all the credit.
Absolutely.
There's the dirty secret.
There's no way.
Like,
I love it. You say that terrible.
This is me.
There's no way. I love it because when God writes the story and you allow him to write the story, there's no way you can take credit. People are like, what? You can't plan that. Yeah. It's a God thing.
It's awesome. It's the best thing.
Yep.
So, Warren, my man, I appreciate the ways that you challenge me not to be too comfortable, that you, encourage peace in my life, even if it's about order and all those things. I appreciate you a lot, man. This is really cool that we get to have these conversations, and I can say things that might come across as controversial in another context, but I know it, like, I get to treat it like just you and I are talking.
Man, it's just so awesome.
I don't want to take it for granted.
Dude, we have an opportunity to share the love of God with the people who are listening, man. I'm so thankful, Jason, number one, for our friendship. And man, this journey, I mean, I think me and you can look back and be like, man, God he really orchestrated this entire thing. And man, I'm honored to be, man, to be friends with you, man, to know your incredible family. And man, this is just, we get to do this. So thank you. And it's awesome.
Can I just say, naming a podcast church is a terrible plan. It just struck me as we were going through this. Is like, the ways that we even put this together, God would be like, man, that might be a terrible plan. So anyway, I like it. I'm excited to see where the good news ending of this terrible plan goes, man. Because God, by the way, as a disclaimer, like, everyone, I hope gets that I'm not saying these plans are actually terrible.
They get the metaphor.
It's like, I just want people to realize it's not like a moment where you're like telling a joke and you're like, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Like, that's what this is. Like, God's plans are awesome. It feels like you just would never put it together that way. So God's doing something cool. For those listening, God's doing something great in your life, whether you know it or not. Tap in, like, build that relationship with God, read a Bible, pray, and seek God, seek Jesus and what he has for your life. It'll change everything. I'm gonna pray us out real quick, and then we'll get rolling to the next one. God, I just thank you for your peace. I thank you for unending, endless peace in our lives. At the end of the good news story, God, I thank you for sending your son to die for us. I thank you for all of the ways that you're going to shape anybody listening to this episode, the way that you're shaping Warren in my life, God, to create a life where it isn't always seeking comfort. It isn't always seeking rest, but it is a piece of knowing you are behind it and you are active in our lives and you are guiding our steps. I thank you for everything you do. I thank you for who you are. And I thank you for who you'll continue to be forever. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen, brother.
Amen.
I desperately want to be like, peace be with you.
That was good.
Dude, that was good. Right? Peace
I
be
love
with
it.
you. So, all right, man. We'll see you on the next one.
Yeah, see you, bro.